Have you taken a good look around Beijing's icon, the Tiananmen? We will now move on to one of Beijing's most well-known symbols, the spectacular Imperial City, better known as the Forbidden City. Let's start the tour of this spectacular city. The Forbidden City was the Chinese imperial palace from the mid-Ming dynasty to the end of the Qing dynasty. It now houses the Palace Museum. For almost 5 centuries, it served as the home of the emperor and his household, and the ceremonial and political center of the Chinese government. Built in 1406, it took 14 years to finish. The complex consists of 980 surviving buildings with 8,707 rooms and covers 720,000 square meters. The palace complex exemplifies traditional Chinese palatial architecture and has influenced cultural and architectural developments in East Asia and elsewhere. The Forbidden City was declared a World Heritage Site in 1987 and is listed by UNESCO as the largest collection of preserved ancient wooden structures in the world. Since 1924, the Forbidden City has been under the charge of the Palace Museum, whose extensive collection of artwork and artifacts were built upon the imperial collections of the Ming and Qing dynasties. The Forbidden City is surrounded by a 7.9-meter high city wall and is 6 meters deep with a 52-meter wide moat. The walls are 8.62 meters wide at the base, tapering to 6.66 meters at the top. These walls served as both defensive walls and retaining walls for the palace. They were constructed with a rammed earth core and surfaced with 3 layers of specially baked bricks on both sides, with the interstices filled with mortar. It's said that the name Forbidden comes from it being so enclosed in. Prepare yourselves as you are about to enter a world that can't be seen anywhere else. The buildings of the Forbidden City are arranged from south to north, all facing the south. This was purposely done so the city could receive the cool breeze of the south and protect it against the wind and gloominess of the north. The wall is pierced by a gate on each side. At the southern end is the main Meridian Gate. To the north is the Gate of Divine Might, which faces Jingshan Park. The east and west gates are called the East Glorious Gate and West Glorious Gate. All gates in the Forbidden City are decorated with a 9x9 array of golden door nails, except for the East Glorious Gate, which has only 8 rows. The Meridian Gate has 2 protruding wings forming 3 sides of square, Wumen or Meridian Gate Square before it. The gate has 5 gateways. The central gateway is part of the Imperial Way, a stone flag path that forms the central axis of the Forbidden City and the ancient city of Beijing itself, and leads all the way from the Gate of China in the south to Jingshan in the north. Only the emperor may walk or ride on the Imperial Way, except for the empress on the occasion of her wedding and successful students after the imperial examination. The Forbidden City is divided into 2 parts. The city has 3 vertical axes. The most important buildings are situated on the central north-south axis. The southern section, or the outer court, was where the emperor exercised his supreme power over the nation. A 3-tiered white marble terrace rises from this square. 3 halls stand on top of this terrace, the focus of the palace complex. From the south, these are the Hall of Supreme Harmony, the Hall of Central Harmony, and the Hall of Preserving Harmony. The northern section, or the inner court, was where he lived with his royal family. It was also used for day-to-day affairs of state. The inner court is separated from the outer court by an oblong courtyard lying perpendicular to the city's main axis. It is the home of the emperor and his family. In the Qing dynasty, the emperor lived and worked almost exclusively in the inner court, with the outer court used only for ceremonial purposes. At the center of the inner court is another set of 3 halls. From the south, these are the Palace of Heavenly Purity, Hall of Union, and the Palace of Earthly Tranquility. It's smaller than the outer court halls. Until 1924, when the last emperor of China was driven from the inner court, 14 emperors of the Ming dynasty and 10 emperors of the Qing dynasty had reigned here. Having been the imperial palace for some 5 centuries, it houses numerous rare treasures and curiosities. Listed by UNESCO as a World Cultural Heritage Site in 1987, the Palace Museum is now one of the most popular tourist attractions worldwide. The site of the Forbidden City was part of the imperial city during the Mongol Yuan dynasty. Upon the establishment of the Ming dynasty, the Hongwu emperor moved the capital from Beijing in the north to Nanjing in the south, and ordered that the Mongol palaces be razed. When his son Judi became the Yongle emperor, he moved the capital to Beijing, and construction began in 1406 of what would become the Forbidden City. Construction lasted 15 years and required more than 1 million workers. Material used include whole logs of precious fobbiden wood, found only in the jungles of southwestern China, and large blocks of marble from quarries near Beijing. The floors of major halls were paved with golden bricks, specially baked paving bricks from Suzhou. The transport of the material itself took 4 years to move. Does that help you imagine the size of the construction? The design of the Forbidden City, from its overall layout to the smallest detail, was meticulously planned to reflect the philosophical and religious principles, and above all, to symbolize the majesty of imperial power. Let me give you a few examples. The red color of the walls and the golden tiles completes the perfect picture at sunrise and sunset. The color red represents happiness, at the same time represents the center of the universe, North Pole. They believed the heavenly kingdom was present here. Since the Chinese believed the emperor was the son of heaven, it was only reasonable to color the palace red. Yellow is the color of the emperor. Thus, almost all roofs in the Forbidden City bear yellow glazed tiles. There are only 2 exceptions. The library at the Pavilion of Literary Profundity had black tiles because black was associated with water and thus fire prevention. Similarly, the Crown Prince's residences have green tiles because green was associated with wood and thus growth. The main halls of the outer and inner courts are all arranged in groups of 3. The shape of the Qian residence or palace representing heaven. The residences of the inner court, on the other hand, are arranged in groups of 6. The shape of the Kun residence or palace representing the earth. The sloping ridges of building roofs are decorated with a line of statuettes. The number of statuettes represents the status of the building. A minor building might have 3 or 5. The Hall of Supreme Harmony has 10, the only building in the country permitted to have this many in imperial times. As a result, the 10th statuette is also unique in the Forbidden City. The layout of buildings follows ancient customs laid down in the Classic of Rites. Thus, ancestral temples are in front of the palace. Storage areas are placed in the front part of the palace complex, and residences in the back. Okay, are you ready to enter the Great Forbidden City? Let me tell you first about the Gate of Supreme Harmony.